when I was asked to give this talk, I was given a title and that was it. I was given a title and told I'd got about 15 minutes to talk. And it said, Innovating Tomorrow's Entrepreneurs. I didn't understand it, so I thought what I'd do is I'd talk about innovation, entrepreneurs, and if I had time, tomorrow. I'm from a construction background. That's as far as you're going to get as slides, as far as I'm concerned. That beautiful red triangle's been with me for 25 years now. We're from the construction industry largely. We work in asset management, and I was a bit disappointed earlier on. Some great talks, but I was very disappointed to see that when Japan moved their weekends, that the construction industry only had one day, and they probably had to work the morning of that day anyway. But you know, it's a tough time that we're facing at the moment, and I think to a large degree we're innovating day by day just to stay alive. We're innovating the way we work, the product offerings that we have by way of, in our area, it's services, the way we work with our customers, the way we work with our suppliers. It's constant innovation. And I think this is the thing I'm going to keep coming back to, this idea that innovation in small businesses, and we are like, you know, if this is small to medium size, and we're right down here at the very small end of this whole gamut. And in businesses of our size, innovation isn't something that happens in a department or has someone responsible. It's just something you do day to day. It's something you'll have done a dozen times by the first coffee break on Monday morning. And to be honest, if you actually said to members of my team, what have you done this week that's innovative? Most of them would say nothing. We just got the job done. So, and I think that's something that needs to be recognised. It's very difficult to pigeonhole innovation in small businesses, and especially when you're talking to the educational sectors and government and people like that, where they see innovation as an activity. At the small end of business, and you know, let's face it, what percentage of the UK economy now is made up of small businesses, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 employees. It's a huge number of businesses, and we don't think largely as innovation as a specific activity put within a box. We were very lucky to win an innovation award earlier this year, and you know, we're pretty chuffed about the whole thing, because actually we didn't think of ourselves as innovators. It was only when we actually started to write things down, because there were like criteria set out of what is innovation and what we're required to do, that we realised that we started 25 years ago by introducing a whole new technique to the construction industry, which is now recognised by most people. The industrial roped access, most people have seen people abseiling down the sides of buildings. Well, I actually sat in a room which is a little bit less salubrious than this, with a dozen people back in the mid-80s, and we went, why don't we get this codified and accepted by the HSE? And we later found we were the first group of people who've ever been to the HSE and said, could you please legislate for us? Because we figured back then that if we weren't legislated, if there was a big accident, it would just get stamped on completely. And now there are thousands and thousands of people qualified to do industrial roped access in the UK alone. It's a worldwide industry. It's responsible for millions and millions of pounds worth of savings to organisations that have to maintain structures. But we kind of came from an environment where innovation was a natural thing to do. All 12 of us around that table were either climbers or cavers. We spent our lives solving problems, because if we didn't solve the problems, we hit the ground at 120 miles an hour and made a big sort of noise. And I think environment's really important for innovation. I mean, obviously in a global context, in a government context, but also within your organisation. Really, I think the only thing I can do today is to speak from my own experience, and hopefully some of it will be useful to people here and, you know, maybe outside. But when I said that, the only thing on those green things that I was really looking for, and I was actually looking for it, was just get out of my way. And that's what my lads say to me many times. Just get out of our way, we'll get it done. And I think it's, well, I'm hoping it's because we generated an environment in our organisation where we say, you guys are damn sight cleverer at this than I am. You know, I just sit in an office and, you know, talk to banks and occasionally get asked to stand up and speak at places like this. You do the job, you know how to do it. And within sensible constraints, do what needs to be done to get it done. And we do that in an environment that probably more than anything is founded on trust. I love the core values thing. I wish we could have something quite that big. But we actually sat down and we actually came up with a number of words. Before we came up with the descriptions, we actually went around and we sat about and we chatted about it around the coffee, and when we were hanging off buildings we were talking about it. We came up with a number of words. And those words have founded what has become our sort of values document. And probably the most important word we've created in there is fairness. And everything we do, we judge by fairness. We judge our relationships within our organisation. We judge our relationships with our clients. We judge, you know, our personal interactions, and everything's judged on fairness. And I think that creates a very sound environment in which people can take risks. And I don't mean leaping out of windows type risks. We do that without worrying about it. Another thing that I think is important is self-confidence, and I think this environment that we create is important, but I think that goes back a long, long way. And only this morning I was listening to Dame Judi Dench on the Today programme, telling people how important Shakespeare was. I'll tell you what, I'd throw Shakespeare off the curriculum tomorrow if it could be replaced with Paul McGee's book about self-confidence. Because I honestly think that one of the things that gets in the way of success as a nation, and you know, all the other things that go with that, entrepreneurialism, innovation, exciting ideas, business success, is the lack of confidence that we have as a nation and that we have as individuals. And if our youngsters were taught the reasons, or at least given some insight into the reasons why they develop, kids aren't lacking in confidence when they're born. I was watching a 12-month-old baby yesterday climbing up something that was twice as big as it. Now, we lose that confidence as we get older. It gets beaten out of us by the educational system. And if we can only put that confidence back into our youngsters, you know, I hesitate to say Britain can be great again, because we're pretty good anyway. But it's one of the things that's going to be very important in the move forward. And as for innovation, you don't innovate from a place where you lack confidence. There's a whole pile of things here that I'm probably going to have to miss out on, but I was told a statistic recently that only 2% of our population has the capability to generate wealth. And of that 2%, only 0.2% actually go on to do that. And as a society, as a community, I'm not an academic, so that could be a totally spurious thing, but it's fair enough to say that not many people have got the ability, and of those people who have the ability, very few of them actually achieve it. And I guess being a skeptic about being able to teach people to be an entrepreneur, I think you're either someone who will confidently step out on a windowsill or not. There was a bit of a there was some people flaring at the leash a little bit early on when a comment was made about should I put my house up, and I think me and Robert were going, yes, so what? Why not? I've actually lost count of the number. I've been married for 21 years in about 10 days' time. And I've actually lost count of the number of times I've casually strode in the evening and say, oh, by the way, I've remortgaged the house. And I think anyone here who's a real entrepreneur will understand that it's not a boast. It's just, it is that casual. It's not casual. You have thought about it, but you'll do things that normal people would think, that's bonkers. But you know that it's important, so you do it. But going back to what I was saying about education, I think what people can do, what I've been very lucky to have recently, is people giving me skills that I didn't have. One of the most useful things that, I'm not sure whether entrepreneurs often are nice people. They might be nice people, but they sort of lose it somewhere along the way. I started my first business.
Stop caring.
I started my first business. I was in my teens when I started my first business. It nearly killed me. The ladder that I was cleaning windows fell on my head. But after that, my current business I started when I was 22. I've been the boss now for 26 years. And if you're the boss, people don't argue with you as much as they should. They don't disagree with you as much as they should. They don't tell you you're wrong as much as you should. You get far too many opportunities to do this, stand up and people listen to you. And actually, it was only a matter of a few years ago that I realised that I really should give myself a bit of a slap and actually get real and recognise that you have privileges that you shouldn't overly exploit. So that's one thing that I've learned through people teaching me skills, but there are other things. You know, there are plenty of entrepreneurs who aren't good business people because they don't necessarily understand communication skills, they don't necessarily understand finance, they don't understand marketing, they don't understand that they need help. Because most of us entrepreneurs don't think we need any help, we can do it all ourselves. Just get out of our way. So I think there is a place. I think the biggest challenge is actually getting the right people on the courses, and I'm glad I'm not going to make that decision. So that's fun for you in the academic sphere to think on. Failure, I've had probably about a dozen businesses now. Some of them still exist and some of them have been successful. But I've learned something from every time one of them's failed. And I think we need, as a society, to understand that the people who will generate wealth will make mistakes. And you know, hopefully they'll be given time and space to learn from them and then move forward in their business. But a really important thing that's come to mind, 4 years ago, I was going to chuck the business in. I'd had enough. I was fed up with the whole thing for all sorts of reasons. And it was then that I went on a course at university where basically what I learned was I took a day a week out. I'm not sure whether I actually learned anything, but during that day a week I actually had time to think. And one of the great things that came out of it, along with some other conversations I had, was that I realised why I was doing it. And this is perhaps where I had a little bit of not so much an issue, but why I was asking the question earlier on, is that since I started to understand why I was doing this, what some people call a great sense of purpose, my business has actually become more and more successful. I think it's Branson who said the more fun we had, the more money we made. And I think it's these incidental things, the making the money, the business success, often come from a deeper understanding of why you're doing it. And again, that's possibly something that can be explored. It's not about making money, that's an outcome. It's about why it's important to do what you're doing. And there's a number of things, and one of the greatest drivers for me right now is the fact that we invest a huge amount of money in a charity that helps young kids do exciting and adventurous stuff. Stuff that when I was a kid took me away from the rough end of a rough town, because I grew up in the West End of Crewe, took me out into the mountains and made me realise there was a lot more to life, and actually gave me opportunities to learn leadership. And we now do that, and that's one of the things that, you know, when you get up in the morning and you think, I don't really, and you go, yeah, of course I do, because we're doing it for a better reason. I'm going to end it all because, well, not all. I'm going to hang on, see. Hang on.
We're not covered.
That's a brilliant phrase. I've never got such a good reaction. I'm going to remember that one. Right, I'm going to end it all. Did any of you see recently a guy jumped out of a, I'm a skydiver, a guy jumped out of a, talk about belief, a guy jumped out of a plane wearing a wingsuit and landed in a load of cardboard boxes? Awesome. Now, you know, getting your parachute onto an aeroplane can be a bit of a bind, but getting 18,000 boxes onto an EasyJet flight is going to be difficult. But innovation, I'll just go to one final idea about innovation after I've just mentioned entrepreneurism. Entrepreneurs, what are we? We're people, we don't like hurdles. We don't like red tape. And the weird thing is, my wife laughed at me here. I said, we don't like bureaucracy, but I couldn't actually spell it. So, so at that point, but the final thing on innovation, just thinking about, you guys are talking about awesome innovation. I mean, some of the stuff here I don't understand, never mind can contemplate. This stuff about intelligent coatings on steel and it's awesome stuff. But down at our end of the game, I'll tell you what real innovation is. One of my guys was involved in a project. We're cleaning out some culverts, pipes under the motorway, full of mud, really mucky end of the job. And we needed to get a rope from one end of the culvert to the other, so we could put on a winch and start hauling the mud out of this thing. One of my guys sat there and he goes, I know what we need. So he goes off to Toys R Us and he buys himself a little remote control boat, and he ties a rope to the remote control boat and zooms it through this culvert from one side of the motorway to the other. That's innovation. Thank you very much.